that world should be ruled by democracies.
I was interviewing you on television a couple of weeks back.
That's right.
And you said, if you really want to understand Jerusalem, why don't you come here and see it?
And you came.
Here I am.
Mass shooting after mass shooting after mass shooting. Why this cannot be fixed?
There are 425 million guns in the United States, which is more than the population.
The problem here is Trump has been able to make the argument that this is a political prosecution and that he's being singled out unfairly.
Defend our nation.
You are saying we could have a cure for cancer.
We'll have treatments for many cancers in this decade, and they're going to come from India.
Downside is that it could potentially wipe us out. But let's start with the upside first.
The upsides are absolute.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Let's take a quick look at what's lined up for you on the show tonight. We start the show tonight with an out-of-this-world story, quite literally. It is the story of India's rise as a space power. The countdown has started for the Chandrayaan-3 landing. It will be a huge milestone in India's space journey, one which has seen a series of success stories. As India gears up to create history, we tell you what this means for India's space sector. Also on the show for you tonight, we get to the story of UK's baby killer and why the story has sent ripples around the world. Is fidgeting good for you? We tell you what a new study says. The hunt for the water monster is going to start days from now. We tell you what the story is all about. We also make you meet the sleep influencers who seem to be profiting from something as basic as sleep. We tell you what this is all about. When Yuri Gagarin made a single orbit around the Earth aboard Vostok 1, the Soviet Union burst into celebration. It was rejoicing, winning the Cold War space race, sending the first man to space, and presenting itself as a country more advanced than its rival, the United States of America. That was 1961. It is 2023, and going to space is no longer just about sending out a message. You see, it's also about the net result, about harnessing space power and transforming lives. And in just 2 days from now, India will be doing exactly that. Chandrayaan-3 will be soft landing near the moon's south side. No country has been able to achieve this feat. In fact, many have tried, most recently Russia. The Luna 25 spacecraft was Russia's first moon mission in almost 50 years. It was supposed to land on the moon's south pole, but Luna 25 spun out of control. Soon, Roscosmos, Russia's state space corporation, lost touch with Luna 25 and the lander crashed into the moon. This happened over the weekend. This weekend, right after India's Chandrayaan-3 entered its last phase, a very crucial one. Chandrayaan-3's lander module has now been lowered into an orbit closer to the moon. The mission has clicked pictures of the moon's far side, and scientists are studying the images to zero in on a safe landing spot. The lander module has also established contact with Chandrayaan-2's orbiter. All that's now left is for India to make history and become the first country to land a rover on the moon's dark side. And this will be more than just a success story or a story of national pride. Chandrayaan-3, you see, will be a story of technology-led transformation. It will basically propel India's growth by boosting the country's space economy. Let me just read out some statistics for you. India's space economy is expected to be worth $13 billion by 2025. An Arthur D. Little report says India's space economy has the potential to touch $100 billion by 2040. India's current share in the global space economy, as of now, stands at 2%. The government targets a 9% by the year 2030. Chandrayaan-3 will be the vehicle that helps India reach this target. It will become the face of India's space economy, one that is not only reliable but also a force for good. Let me just ask you a question. What comes to your mind when I say space economy? You see, space, while an out-of-the-world concept, affects life on Earth like few others. Gravitas is being broadcast live to you courtesy direct broadcast satellites, or DBS. If you are watching us online, chances are you are using satellite broadband. Google Maps, satellites again. Satellites, you see, can help reduce poverty by forecasting natural disasters, and as you may have rightly guessed, it can also save lives. Satellites can help monitor air quality, water quality, seismic surveying, infra mapping, urban planning, climate change monitoring, animal tracking. All of that comes under space economy. The umbrella term encompasses satellite manufacturing, satellite services like navigation, satellite television, radio, and then you have satellite launches. Also ground equipment like VSATs, network operation centers, etc. Space economy also factoring in a country's space budget. Now, this is a sector India is betting big on. ISRO, or the Indian Space Research Organization, has made history by successfully launching the world's most cost-effective missions. Like we have told you time and again, India's Mars mission, Mangalyaan, moon missions, Chandrayaan-2 and Chandrayaan-3 all cost less than Hollywood space movie Interstellar. This is more than an FYI in a world where service providers, consumers, and governments are all looking for optimum utilization of currency, which is also one of the reasons why several foreign players launch their satellites through ISRO. It has launched 239 foreign satellites of 28 countries as of April 2023. There is cost, but also reliability. Chandrayaan-3 will be a testimony for India's space talent and the country's appetite for taking calculated risks and doing what no country or global power has been able to. And this feat will attract global startups to make in India, manufacture in India, help incubate space tech companies in India. In the year 2021, the US had over 5,500 space tech companies. The UK, 615. Canada, 480. Germany, 402. And India, 368. Chandrayaan-3 will not only encourage more global players to work in the Indian space sector, but also at the same time encourage more local players to ride the wave. You see, this is the picture of the future. The space is the future. Video meetings and Zoom calls have replaced in-person meetings, and you need satellites for glitch-free network connectivity. We all want prompt delivery of our online orders. You need satellite communications help in tracking movement of goods. Satellites are needed to provide remote education. Satellites are needed for rescue operations, be it your wildfires or multiple migrant boat tragedies. No wonder then space is what all countries are looking at. The Indian government had launched INSPAC, or Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center, basically to oversee activities in the space sector. And this includes the building of launch vehicles, satellites, providing space-based services, also sharing test results, setting up incubation centers. And India is also working on a human space flight program, Gaganyaan. It is collaborating with the US on the Artemis mission. And at the same time, India's new space policy also encourages ISRO to, quote-unquote, undertake on-institute resource utilization and celestial prospecting. In short, there is will, there is talent, and a stellar record. India's space sector is a force that's unstoppable. Will the upcoming BRICS summit in South Africa see a significant development in the relationship between China and India? A potential meeting between Prime Minister Modi and the Chinese President Xi Jinping is reportedly on the cards. And that would be huge considering the unresolved tensions at the border. Can a meeting at the BRICS summit alter the ground reality? There's also an intriguing backdrop to this story. It is China's push for BRICS expansion. You see, China wants to invite new members to counterbalance its waning influence within the bloc. Keeping in mind this key development and the hinted bilateral meeting, let's just explore whether the upcoming BRICS summit will be a diplomatic overture to boost China's clout, or does India hold the key to the BRICS dynamics? China has hinted that Xi Jinping may hold bilateral talks with Prime Minister Modi when they meet at the upcoming BRICS summit in South Africa this week. The Chinese ambassador to South Africa, Chen Xiaodong, hinted about the meeting during a media briefing. Xiaodong told reporters, and I'm quoting, "I am confident that as two nations, two countries, we will have direct talks, direct meetings. I cannot say there is tension between us, but as neighboring countries, we have many common interests. At the same time, we have some problems." Now, while Xi Jinping is visiting South Africa from August 21 to 24, Prime Minister Modi will be reaching Johannesburg on the 22nd of August. And right now, there is no official confirmation on whether a bilateral has been scheduled. But since the two leaders will be at the same venue, a possible meeting cannot be ruled out. And if it does happen, this will be the first formal in-person meeting between the two leaders since the Galwan Valley clash. Last year, Prime Minister Modi and Xi Jinping attended the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Samarkand but did not interact. They also had a brief conversation at the G20 Bali Summit last year. The meeting gained significance as it comes in the backdrop of the unresolved tensions between the two sides at the border. So what can we really expect from that meeting if it does happen? Will it change the reality on the ground? You see, right now, China is relentlessly consolidating its military positions at the border. The Chinese military is putting up new helipads, roads, bridges, border villages. It is upgrading all its air bases, facing India with new runways, shelters for bombers, drones, recon aircraft. Dual-use villages are being established. So it can help China in asserting territorial control. The Chinese provocation at the border continues, but India's defense infra push is not far behind. To counter the Chinese aggression, Indian Army also is building infra at a rapid pace. The Indian Army is focused on improving facilities for the soldiers and supporting faster movement of men and material to deal with any contingency in the sensitive areas. India has inducted thousands of extra troops. and modern military weaponry. It includes building shelters for the troops, storage facilities for the tanks, artillery guns. It involves building roads, bridges, tunnels in the difficult terrain for improved connectivity. Efforts to upgrade Indian military capability with the variety of weapons is underway. And the army is also pursuing the development of light tanks and futuristic infantry combat vehicles for mountain warfare. Meanwhile, the 19th round of the India-China border talks has somewhat brightened the prospects of a Modi-Xi handshake at the BRICS summit. Beijing seemingly took a soft line during the latest round of the border talks. According to New Delhi, the meeting had a positive outcome. It resulted in the Indian and Chinese foreign ministries issuing a joint statement in the military talks held on the 19th of August. The two sides agreed to ensure that no new posts are constructed in close proximity to the line of actual control. The two sides also agreed on identifying specific limits for patrolling. You see, in the past, such border talks have yielded no significant results. Saturday's discussions were one of the few occasions when Beijing showed interest in fixing the situation. But as always, the question remains, can China be trusted completely? And here's the thing, China may be wanting to curry favor. One of the burning issues in the lead up to the BRICS summit has been the expansion of the grouping. Iran and Argentina have shown interest in formally joining the group, while Russia is on board with Beijing's decision, as is South Africa. India remains undecided. India is aware that China is looking to utilize this platform, this forum, as a way to boost its geopolitical might. And therefore, it's important to look into what factors are actually driving China's BRICS strategy. So the growing chorus in China is that BRICS has started showing signs of weakness. By attracting new members, China wants to inject new impetus into the BRICS development. As per Chinese assessment, economic performance of the BRICS countries, including China, has worsened in the past 7 or 8 years. In other words, the golden BRICS has turned into stone BRICS. So has China turned altruistic? Of course not. It really is about China's race against the US for global dominance, after all. You see, Beijing is worried that the existing US-West-China model is being replaced by a US-West-India model, and this model threatens to isolate a belligerent China. It threatens to deliver a blow to China's power and position. It is against this background that China wants to expand BRICS. China wants to neutralize the potential competitors like India. To sum up, for China, the purpose of the new round of the BRICS expansion is aimed at promoting China's agenda. It is a strategy in which China wants to prevent the BRICS members, particularly India, from drifting too far into the US Western camp. And if China is to have its way, it needs India on its side. Meanwhile, China and America's spy wars have intensified, the dawn of a new Cold War era, if you will. We are witnessing a new chapter in geopolitics, with great powers competing with each other for global dominance. Some old players and some new players, a world where information is being increasingly weaponized in the name of national security. Specifically, a world where global leader US faces a new era of power competition, one with a revisionist Russia and another with a rising and belligerent Beijing. With both China and the US boosting their counterintelligence efforts, spying has become an increasing flashpoint in the US-China relationship. Let's just understand what this means for the world. But first, here's an update. On Monday, Chinese authorities publicly accused a government worker of spying for the CIA. The country's civilian spy agency, the Ministry of State Security, said that it is investigating a cadre at one of its ministries. The man in question has been identified by the surname Hao. He was allegedly recruited by the CIA while he was studying in Japan. The 39-year-old Hao allegedly became acquainted with an official at the US Embassy in Japan. Howe met the American official, known as Ted, as per reports, through processing a visa application. Ted reportedly took Howe to dinner, gave him gifts, and asked for his help with a research paper. And then Ted introduced Howe to a colleague who worked at the CIA. Howe was then instigated into rebelling and signing the espionage agreement. And upon returning to China from Japan, Howe allegedly took a job working for a ministry in the Chinese government, and he then met with the US CIA agents to provide intelligence and collect espionage funds. The CIA and the US State Department are yet to respond on this development. Previously, it has been rare for China to publicly name antagonist organizations or countries, but this is the second case of alleged espionage this month in which the government ministry has directly pointed towards the CIA. Howe's arrest comes almost a little over 10 days after the Chinese government announced the arrest of another Chinese national, Zheng Momo. Momo's arrest was announced on the 10th of August. He was also arrested on similar accusations of spying for the CIA. Momo was an employee at a military-industrial company with access to classified information. He was allegedly recruited by a CIA official in Italy. The statements on both the cases were released by the Ministry of State Security on WeChat, China's super app. The secretive agency, which oversees intelligence and counterintelligence, has taken to warning the Chinese public against espionage. The Chinese ministry has called on the citizens to join the fight against espionage. It also offered rewards and protection for those who provide information. And they're all part of the Chinese effort to ramp up anti-espionage efforts. It started with the passing of the new anti-espionage law that took effect in July, and it has been criticized by the US and others for going too far. They say that the Chinese law's sweeping definition of espionage activities could ensnare foreign companies conducting legitimate business. In recent years, in fact, China has arrested dozens of Chinese as well as foreign nationals on the suspicion of spying. It sees itself under threat from spies. It comes as Western countries, mostly the US, accuse China of espionage and cyber attacks. It is a charge that Beijing has vehemently rejected. Now, it must be noted that the Chinese leader, Xi Jinping, has made national security a key priority. It is meant to counter what Xi Jinping sees as growing threats from foreign forces, water, as well as communication at the military bases. And let's not forget the diplomatic showdown that went down when a Chinese spy balloon was found hovering over the US airspace earlier this year. The US used a fifth-generation F-22 fighter jet to shoot that down. China denied it was a spy craft, but the drama opened the world's eyes into the epic intelligence war. As these espionage dramas continue to unfold, one cannot help but wonder, are we witnessing the beginning of a new Cold War of a different kind, with China and the US at the forefront of a global intelligence power struggle? Is history repeating itself, or are we entering uncharted territory? With tensions escalating and both the sides stepping up their counterintelligence efforts, what kind of impact will this have on the world stage? Only time will reveal the answers as this high-stakes game of espionage and geopolitics continues to play out. Have you heard of the UK's killer nurse? You have probably come across the story of how a neonatal nurse, Lucy Ledby, has been found guilty of murdering babies. I know this sounds like a horror story. It is a heart-wrenching tale of how babies were killed. Today, the court has sentenced her to life in prison without parole. Who is this murderer? How and why did she kill the babies? How did she escape scrutiny for so long? Let's take a closer look. This is Lucy Ledby, the killer nurse. She is the UK's most prolific child serial killer in recent times, and she has created ripples of fear for new mothers. In the year 2012, Ledby started working at the Countess of Chester Hospital's neonatal unit. 3 years in, she started killing innocent babies. Can you believe that? Between 2015 and 2016, the killer nurse murdered 7 babies and attempted to kill 6 more. How did she carry out these murders in the first place? In unthinkable ways. You might find these details disturbing, to say the least. Ledby deliberately injected the babies with air. She inserted nasogastric tubes and pumped air into their tiny stomachs. How horrific is that? Not just that, she overfed them milk, poisoned them with insulin. Ledby regularly assaulted babies. Those who did not lose their lives were left badly harmed. One of them, by the way, is 7 years old now and faces severe learning difficulties. The child also has a lot of complex needs, harrowing and scary, isn't it? New mothers already have enough reasons to worry. But the killer nurse's case has taken their fears to a whole new level. Let's just tell you more. During her killing spree, Ledby took care of hundreds of newborn babies. She spent a majority of her shifts looking after the sickest babies on the unit. Can you imagine that? Hundreds of babies were exposed to a heinous killer like Ledby. And what's even more alarming is how composed Ledby appeared after taking all those innocent lives. And I have some of the text messages that she sent out to her colleagues after these murders. They might shock you, but it's important to know these details. Let me just read them out. This one was right after her first known murder at the Countess of Chester Hospital. I'm quoting, "I just don't know how I'm going to feel seeing parents. Dad was on the floor crying, saying, 'Please don't take our baby away,' when I took him to the mortuary. It's just heartbreaking." Another one read, "It was the hardest thing I've ever had to do." Just 3 days later, she messaged a manager to assign her more shifts, but her request was declined. And 2 weeks later, after her third murder, she sent this text to her colleague. "On a day-to-day basis, it's an incredible job with so many positives, but then sometimes I think, how do such sick babies get through? And others just die so suddenly and unexpectedly. Guess that's how it's meant to be. I think there is an element of fate involved. There is a reason for everything." Can you believe that? Can you see how Ledby was fooling everyone around her? After each murder, she messaged her colleagues informing them about the deaths. And in turn, she received sympathy, she received concern. She tried to cleverly conceal her crimes, but not for very long. You see, before June 2015, there were fewer than 3 baby deaths per year in the neonatal unit. But ever since Ledby came into the picture, the deaths rose alarmingly and for unexplained reasons. In June alone, 3 babies died within 2 weeks. Ledby's murder spree had been going on for roughly 2 months when the unit's lead consultant grew suspicious, and he soon raised concerns to the top bosses. Other doctors also spoke up. But guess what? The management dismissed their concerns. In fact, asked them to stop making allegations. The top manager even asked them to write an apology to the killer nurse. The unexpected deaths continued in 2016, and Ledby finally came under fire. She was dismissed from the medical duties and given a clerical role. Soon, she was under investigation. 2 years after that, she was arrested, only to be released on bail. Ledby was arrested twice more and finally charged in the year 2020. You see, she may have manipulated her colleagues through her emotional text messages, but what the police found at her home told an entirely different story. Ledby had left behind some handwritten notes. Let me just read them out for you. I don't deserve to live. I killed them on purpose because I am not good enough to care for them. I am a horrible, evil person. And in capital letters, I am evil, I did this. Lucy Ledby's trial had been going on for the last 10 months, and reports say it is one of the longest murder trials in the UK. After over 76 hours of deliberations, the jury has found her guilty of 7 murders, 6 attempted murders. And upon hearing the verdict, the killer nurse broke down. She also refused to appear for her sentence. A murderous nurse continued to work for so many years. She claimed so many lives, left so many parents devastated. You see, the role of nurses is highly significant. But what happens when they turn out to be murderers? It is a nightmare, one that has unfortunately come to life now. Let's now shift our focus to Japan. Experts say the Japanese military has been becoming a hub for sexual abuse, many other forms of harassment running rampant in the armed forces. Reports say the victims do not trust the way their complaints will be handled. And thus they fear retribution if they speak out. Many women have been pressured into dropping their cases altogether. Our next report telling you more about this.
Japan has one of the strongest militaries in the world. The Global Firepower Index shows that the Japanese military stands at the 8th position out of 145 countries. The army, also known as the Ground Self-Defense Force, has nearly 140,000 personnel, but not all of them feel safe. In 2022, experts say that the self-defense forces witnessed over 1,300 cases of harassment. Why hasn't the world heard of this before? It's because of most of the incidents are never reported. Reports show that 60% of the victims, including men and women, never report the harassment cases. The majority of the victims are driven by fear. They do not trust the SDF and the Defense Ministry with their complaints. Victims fear that they will face retribution if they speak out. Some of them said they didn't even know who to talk to. Many feared being targeted by whistleblower hunters. When victims gathered the courage to report their case, investigators say the Defense Ministry didn't provide proper help and pressured the victims to drop their complaints. Nearly 80% of the cases involve abuse of power, and 12% of them are sexual harassment cases. There were also cases of maternity harassment. That is when women are targeted for taking time off before and after giving birth. The investigation was carried out in response to a sexual assault complaint filed by a former member of the Self-Defense Forces, Rina Gonoi. Some former personnel also filed damage claims against the government and said that their cases were covered up or mishandled. This is not just about the Japanese military. The British military was also in the headlines earlier this year. A whistleblower revealed 8 incidents of rape and sexual abuse in the military. A member of parliament, Sarah Atherton, said that the British military exhibits a wider culture of institutional misogyny despite repeated promises of reform. The British military has witnessed horrible cases of harassment, like a servicewoman being groped, forcibly kissed, and exposed by a male colleague at a unit Christmas party. Another female personnel was harassed when a man entered her room while she was sleeping. A junior servicewoman was raped and forced to leave the armed forces. This is while the abuser was protected and remained in the army. Sarah Atherton says that the military police and prosecutors should not deal with rape and sexual assault cases. She has urged the ordinary civil police to handle the cases. But currently, military rape cases can be heard in both civil and military courts. That is despite complaints that conviction rates are far lower in the service justice system. although defense officials say that the situation for women personnel is gradually getting better. They say that dealing with cultural challenges in the military doesn't happen overnight. Are they referring to harassment as a cultural challenge? Defense Secretary Ben Wallace says that the key here is that we take complaints seriously. They're dealt with without fear or favor. There isn't undue influence and the chain of command is removed from it. That sounds like the ideal way to deal with things. But it's all about walking the talk. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And for those of you watching the show from India, let me ask you, did you buy anything today? What was your go-to payment method? Was it a digital form of payment, UPI? And how many UPI transactions did you carry out today? I'm guessing at least one, maybe more. While UPI transactions have become an everyday thing for Indians, for the German Minister for Digital and Transport, Volker Wissing, it was a first. He was in Bengaluru to attend the G20 Digital Ministers meeting, and that's when he was seen buying vegetables from the roadside. He paid for his groceries via UPI, that is Unified Payments Interface, and he appeared rather fascinated by it. The German embassy in India posted the video on X. Look at it for yourself.
We'll take it to flower market.
Yeah. I told them not to.
Yeah. Well done.
The caption read, and I'm quoting, "One of India's success stories is digital infrastructure. UPI enables everybody to make transactions in seconds. Millions of Indians use it." The Federal Minister for Digital and Transport, Volker Wissing, was able to experience the simplicity of UPI payments firsthand and is very fascinated. The embassy said it right, of course. Millions of Indians actively use UPI. Let's just look at some numbers now. So far, in the year 2023, India has logged 7.5 to 9 billion UPI transactions every month. For the month of July, in fact, the figure was close to 10 billion. The total value of transactions touched 15.3 trillion rupees. That is over $184 billion in just 1 month. That's the highest on record, by the way, and it's only expected to grow further. As per a PwC India report, UPI transactions are likely to reach 1 billion per day by the financial year 2026 to 27. Last year, the total UPI transaction value accounted for nearly 86% of India's GDP. That was more than $1,515 billion. At present, there are 300 million UPI users, 500 million merchants who use UPI to accept money for their businesses. If you just take a walk on Indian streets, you would find QR codes for digital payments just about everywhere. It does not matter if it's a street vendor, a small shop, or a huge showroom. The sheer ease and availability of these UPI transactions and payment methods has made cash payments a rare sight. In fact, Sri Lanka, France, the UAE, Singapore have partnered with India on emerging fintech and payment solutions. But what about the West? Is the West too afraid to learn from India? Why the reluctance? When it comes to global rankings, India topped the charts with most digital transactions. It even beat China. But the US stood lower on the list. What explains America's low ranking? You see, America is dominated by card-based networks for payment systems. Americans pay using debit or credit cards. The system is built by financial giants like Visa and MasterCard. Companies often lobby against anything that would affect their revenue. The card lobby is so strong in the US that when Indonesia was launching its new domestic payment network, American trade officials convinced the country to loosen the rules. In India as well, when the government was planning to restrict Visa and MasterCard, the card companies reached out to the US trade representative. They raised concerns about a level playing field. One reason for the UPI problem in the US could be the government does not want to compete with the private sector. So it is hesitating from creating an alternative payment system. But who is getting affected in the end? The people of the country, of course. Americans don't get to enjoy easy digital payments like Indians. The question is, when will the US do something about it? Do you feel the incessant need to keep shaking your leg while sitting? Does it seem impossible to sit still for hours? If yes, then you might be accustomed to the fidget factor. To keep tapping or fiddling. It's usually perceived as a sign of nervousness. Some people also find it rude or irritating. But studies say that fidgeting can actually help you live a longer life. Experts say even tapping your feet while working is good for your health. What is the science behind the art of fidgeting? For those of you who may not be well versed with the term, let me just break it down for you first. The dictionary definition of fidgeting, it is a neurologically programmed rhythmic movement of a body part. And in simple words, it's when you move a certain body part by instinct. It usually happens when you are nervous or you are restless. What experts are now calling the fidget factor is something that can actually help you even if you live a sedentary lifestyle, like a desk job. Studies say that if you are sedentary and you fidget, it can actually help you reduce body fat, boost concentration, help you manage stress, and also increase memory. You may have a friend who scolds you every time you are seen shaking your leg, but now you can tell them that you are simply working out. You see, sitting for long periods of time slows down your metabolism. It also affects the regulation of blood sugar, blood pressure, as well as increasing your body fat. But the impulse to fidget could help manage your weight. The act of fidgeting prompts a person to move. It's like the vibration alert on a fitness tracker that tells you to complete your steps. And experts say that tiny movements while fidgeting have a big impact on the body. If we just count the small things we do while fidgeting, experts say that even tapping your leg while sitting can actually increase the amount of calories by 29%. Fidgeting while standing, movements like shifting from foot to foot, can boost the number of calories burnt by 38% as compared to lying down. Let's just remind you that fidgeting is not a replacement for exercise. The act can only help you move more. The small movements can help you move more energetically, like walking more steps and with more zeal. Scientists have found this factor being echoed in the animal kingdom. Let's just take songbirds as an example. They binge on seeds from bird feeders, but never seem to gain weight. Experts say that it's because they use their energy by changing their wing beat frequency. And fidgeting can also help you with memory and focus. Simple actions like doodling can help you with recollection. Studies show that people who doodled while on a phone call remembered 29% more details. Scientists call this a physiological stimulation. Actions like folding a piece of paper or bending a paper clip can sometimes give the right level of stimulation to perform a task. Imagine a tennis player bouncing the ball before serving. The player does not need to bounce the ball for a serve, but many professionals find that such a pre-serve routine actually helps them focus. And in this case, bouncing the ball comes under the art of fidgeting. So what about people who don't fidget? How can they learn the art of fidgeting? Although fidgeting comes from impulse or the urge to move, people can also tap into the fidgety benefits by using prompts. One can use a vibrating fitness tracker to help them move. Changing your routine can go a long way, or changing your environment, like having a standing desk at work. While scientists are testing out the positives of fidgeting, what we know for sure is that a sedentary lifestyle can be toxic. Such a lifestyle can lead to increased risk of cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, obesity, depression, and anxiety. What could be the need of the hour is the need to change our perception of fidgeting. The act is often perceived as being rude or as someone not concentrating or focusing enough. But experts say that, and I'm quoting, if you allow the body's natural drive to move, the likelihood is you are actually going to be healthier, happier, and thinner, and quite frankly, live longer. So if you are ever nervous, restless, or too excited, fidget all you want and don't think about what anybody will be thinking of this. You are basically nudging your way into a healthier future, one fidget at a time. And our next story is about the hunt for a mysterious creature. It revolves around repeated attempts to find what's called the Loch Ness monster. What's that, you ask? Well, the answer has not been found for decades, and a huge mission is being launched now to solve that very mystery. Our next report telling you all about it.
Have you heard about the Loch Ness monster? This story begins around 90 years ago, when the manager of a hotel spotted what was described as a whale-like water beast in Loch Ness. Loch Ness is a freshwater loch in the Scottish Highlands. Loch is the Scottish word for a lake. In days from now, hundreds are going to take part in a mission. They are gearing up for the biggest organized hunt for the Loch Ness monster, as it's called. What exactly will this involve? Well, a huge surface watch, basically. Those participating would be looking out for inexplicable movements or breaks in the water. For how long? 2 days. The people would join the mission from different parts of the world on the hunt for the mysterious creature. Some would be joining in person, others would be taking part virtually. What makes this attempt stand out is the use of surveying equipment, like drones, that will be used to generate thermal images of the water. A hydrophone will also be used to find acoustic signals. Such surveying equipment has never been used on Loch Ness. The volunteers taking part in the mission would be briefed about what to look out for. The earliest mention of a monster in the area goes back to the Middle Ages. That's when an Irish monk is believed to have encountered a water beast. So the existence of the creature has been a long-held belief. Over the years, it was also given a name, Nessie. In the 1960s, the Loch Ness Investigation Bureau was established. The year 1972 saw it carrying out the biggest search of the loch. Next weekend, as volunteers get together to find the mysterious creature, they hope that their efforts will pay out and the mystery will be resolved.
Time now for a rather awkward question. What kind of a sleeper are you? Someone who can fall asleep anywhere, or the kind that needs a peaceful room, clean, crisp sheets, and the perfect blackout curtains? No matter which club you belong to, I bet not many of you will be okay with the idea of someone watching you sleep. I mean, your partner is an exception. So are your parents. But imagine a stranger, a complete stranger, watching you sleep. Imagine him stare at you as you twitch in your sleep or even talk in your sleep. Just the thought is creepy, is it not? Well, enter the sleep streamers, as they are called. These are people who are streaming their sleep. Believe me, there are hundreds of people on YouTube, TikTok, Twitch, who are making thousands of dollars by simply leaving their video cameras switched on as they sleep. It's hard to imagine you will have audience for content like this, but we live in a bizarre world, it seems. In the last 7 days, for example, one sleep streamer was watched for 1,942 hours on Twitch alone. Another 1,538 hours. A sleep streamer from Korea was watched 1,207 hours. These sleep streamers have thousands of followers. Followers who see nothing wrong in watching a stranger sleep. Be her most vulnerable self, most exposed, probably sleeping with his or her mouth wide open or drooling. I cannot help but wonder why. Why do people like to watch a stranger sleep? Some say sleep streamers gives them a sense of community. Some claim watching a stranger sleeping makes them feel less lonely. They feel that they have someone to fall asleep with. That's just sad, isn't it? Also, why do people let others watch them sleep? Is it vanity to a whole new level? As if Instagramming your breakfast or tweeting about every thought that crosses your mind was not enough, must you now also let strangers into your bedroom while you sleep? Is this the height of self-involvement we are looking at? Or is this just for the thrill? Also, how safe is sleep streaming? Remember, you have predators out there. You also have dangerous AI that can pick your live stream and give it the most dangerous spin. But sleep streams could not care less. Sleep streamers are letting people disturb their sleep for some cash. Viewers can pay to trigger loud noises as the sleep streamer sleeps as well. Viewers can also remotely active flicker lights, trigger alarms. And if that was not enough, there are sleep streamers who actually allow viewers to remotely give them an electric shock as they sleep. Is this sadism? Is this the end of the world? Or just the new normal in the social media era? You decide. On that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. Hope you sleep well tonight. Leaving you with Gravitas Images. Thanks for watching.
It's easy to tell you a flat story. It's easy to show you what's happening around the world. We do the difficult part.
This weapon has been banned, but the US, Ukraine and Russia do not find the bombs problematic.
We also tell you why what's happening.
A new drug is making a difference in the fight against Alzheimer's. This medicine helps slow down a patient's cognitive decline.
We look beyond the text. We give you context.
Is China preparing for a war in the Himalayas? And tonight, we come to you with some proof.
Hypocrisy is stunning.
Do leaders mean what they say?